Shouting hello into the void and welcome, friends. My name is Zariah, and welcome to the first episode of my podcast, Stream of Consciousness, pretty much where I talk about whatever is on my mind, throw that out into the internet, and hope that the internet reaches back. Yeah, another white woman doing a podcast. Who would have thought? I don't really have a plan for this. My goal is to pretty much record episodes when I have something that I want to talk about and then see how long I can talk about stuff and see if people relate to it. So, yeah. I got this idea when I was posting a lot on my Snapchat story. I have a story called my unhinged story where I post just rants about my day or whatever, and I've had people like swipe up on it and be like, have you ever considered doing a podcast? Your voice would be wonderful for one. And I was like, oh my god, guys, stop. So I was like, why not? So I made my little logo, and yeah, I think I'm gonna try and do 30 minutes for now, and then we will see where the future takes us. So I don't really have a plan for today's episode. I do know that I want to talk about this book that I'm reading called Fourth Wing. Now, something that you need to know about me is I am a fantasy girly through and through. If there is a fae man, a dragon man, I will eat that shit up every single time. And I started listening to the audiobook for Fourth Wing, and I am obsessed with it. For those of you that don't know, Fourth Wing is about a girl named Violet, and she is in this war-torn country. This is just going to be me explaining books that I love to you guys. She lives in this war-torn country where everybody that is of age gets sort of either drafted into the army for the country that are fighting against this warring country that I can't remember the name of, it doesn't matter, or they get conscripted, I think is what it's called, and then they either go to a scribe college, so they work in library, writer college, which is where they learn to dragon ride, healer college, and then I think the other one is the army area. So Violet has been trained her entire life to be a scribe, right? You find out that her mother is like the general of this country's army, and her sister is like a lieutenant in this army, and her brother is dead because he died during the war because he was, and they're all writers, okay? Her dad was the only scribe in her family. And so she's been prepping to be a scribe her whole life. She's been really weak growing up her entire life, like her bones break a lot. She doesn't have a lot of muscle. And so the day of her conscription, she goes to her mom, and her mom is like, you're going to be a dragon rider. If you go to try and be a scribe, I'm going to basically force you out of that college and kick you into the writer college. And her sister Mira is like, Mom, please don't do this. She's going to die. And her mom is pretty much like, good. So Violet gets nervous, and she's like, I have been planning to be a scribe my entire life, and I'm not prepared for this. And her sister's like, please don't die. I don't want to be an only child, which is horrendous. So the first challenge she has to go through is to walk this parapet across a mountainside, and it's windy, and she gets up there, and she meets this guy, Zayden. Now, Zayden is our male love interest. He's a third year at the college, and her mom is responsible for his dad's death because his dad led a rebellion against the government of this country. Are you guys following me? So the reason that his dad is dead is her mom. And so they don't like each other, right? Or so you think. So Violet gets across the parapet. She meets this girl named Rhiannon. They become friends. And basically it's just about her trying to survive in the dragon's quarters. I keep referring to it as a dragon's quarters, writer's quarters. And there's this one guy that really wants to fucking murder her, and she's not having it. But eventually they get to the event where they pair with a dragon. Now, dragons are above humans. Humans cannot go talk shit against dragon law, pretty much. And so whatever the dragons say goes, but the dragon also has a council. This is getting too convoluted. Just stay with me here, I promise. So Violet goes out there, and she gets cornered by that guy that wants to murder her. I want to say his name is Jack, but I think that's wrong. And all of a sudden, this huge dragon that no one has bonded with in years, he's like massive, this huge, massive black dragon. Like, she comes up to like maybe below his knee. Like, he's huge. And she bonds with him, but then all of a sudden she hears another voice in her head, because when humans and dragons are bonded, they can hear their voices in their heads. Guys, I didn't promise that this would be a sentient podcast. It is stream of consciousness, okay? So I'm just talking as it flows through my brain. So she hears her dragon in her head, and she's like, what the fuck? And then she hears another dragon's voice in her head, and she's like, what the fuck? Because no one has ever bonded with two dragons before, or more specifically, two dragons have never bonded to the same person. And so the humans find this out, and they're like, no, we can't have this. But then the dragons meet, and the dragons are like, we can do whatever the fuck we want. We're dragons, bitch. And so she gets two dragons. Another thing that I forgot to say is, what is a fantasy story without a love triangle? So Violet and Xaden, if you did not catch on already, are going to fall in love, and I love them so much. But the other piece of the triangle is Dane. I almost called him Dale. That name would suit him better. So Dane is Violet's childhood best friend. His dad is her mom's, like, I don't want to say secretary, like counsel. You know what I mean? And so they grew up together. She's like, always thought he was hot, and she finds out that he's also in the Rider Wing, and like he's looking out for her, and like sees her as this thing that needs to be protected, right? Because that is what he knew her as. So like the whole time that he's known her growing up, it's been Violet is breakable. Violet is, you know, going to be a scribe. She can't, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you need to make sure that she stays out of trouble because she's so, like, breakable and fragile. However, you know, that shit does not fly in the writers college, because if you're weak, you die. Like, hundreds of kids die every year in that college. And so Violet pretty much has to learn how to make herself stronger. But it's problematic because Dane keeps seeing her as this weak thing that needs to be protected, so he doesn't want her to take risks. And she's like, dude, you are my best friend from childhood. Like, you gotta, like, I appreciate you being here for me and all of this stuff that you're doing for me, but you gotta let me become the person that I can be. Like, you know what I mean? And honestly, it was really refreshing to read because, like, sure, we get a lot of, like, strong female protagonists, but they're also, like, not anything without the man that they meet, which, like, is kind of the case with Violet and Xaden. Like, she's, like, obsessed with him, which I love, by the way. But she is very adamant on doing stuff on her own, and I love that for her. And I feel like it's different than, for example, Feyre from ACOTAR. Because of course I've read ACOTAR. Are you crazy? So Feyre to me strikes as, like, sure, she becomes like her own independent person, but like, do we really know her without Rhysand with her? Like, you know what I mean? Like, those two are become like ridiculously interconnected after the second book, and like, I don't know. That's why I'm a Nesta fan. Nesta's book, Silver Wings, fave, by the way. And if you're wrong, I don't want to hear it. Or if you disagree, you're wrong and I don't want to hear it. Did I mention that this podcast will not be edited so far unless I absolutely think that I need to? Anyway, it's just nice to see Violet as someone who's resourceful. She reminds me a lot of Katniss from Hunger Games. She's very resourceful and like poisons people before sparring matches and stuff so that she has an advantage when she's weaker. Pretty much it all leads to her realizing that she's in love with Xaden and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, I'm too broken and damaged, which is whatever. But they end up sleeping together. And oh, the big thing, duh. The dragon that Violet bonded with is the mate of Xaden's dragon. So they're connected forever. So yeah, that's what I'm reading right now. They just like flew north or somewhere to this outpost, and of course everything is going fine, and then Violet finds out that Xaden is working, is not only, you know, the child of a traitor, but is quote unquote a traitor himself. And she's like, why couldn't you trust me? And he's like, I couldn't tell you, and whatever. So that's what I'm reading right now, and honestly eating it up. It's really fun. I really like it. I've never been into dragons. Like, I never watched Game of Thrones, but I am enjoying this. So honestly, might jump into Game of Thrones. I have not seen a lot of big like franchises. Like Game of Thrones I've not seen. Breaking Bad I haven't seen. What's the big one that people get upset about me not seeing? Lord of the Rings. I might have my roommate on for this podcast once to try and convince me to watch Lord of the Rings, because she's been trying to convince me for 13 years and it has not worked. Regardless, yeah, that's what I'm reading right now, and I am loving it so much. I will keep you guys posted as I get through the end of the first book and move on to the second one, Iron Flame. Watch this podcast turn into me just book reviewing. Oh, and if you have ideas of what you want me to talk about, like, please tell me. I am saying this, like, I want this to be, sure, like, a quote-unquote video diary for me to share with people that would like to listen, but also, like, if it's me reaching a hand out to the internet, right? And I want that hand to reach back, but I'm reaching out with this podcast and like these ideas that I'm talking about. And if people are like, yo, you should talk about this, I definitely want to be like, hell yeah, let's fucking do it. You know what I mean? Because why not? You know, I want to create a space where people can hear about things that they care about. Cut to you guys skipping the entire thing of me reading about Fourth Wing. Anyway, yeah, that is what I'm reading right now. I am, to get more serious, the passage of time is crazy, by the way. I am dealing with my younger sister moving to college in a couple of weeks, and that is throwing me for a loop, because the fuck do you mean you're going to college? You are 8 years old. And I know that a lot of people go through like the same thing. I raised my younger sisters. That'll be a lore unlocking in another podcast. But we went through a lot of shit growing up. Who hasn't? But I genuinely feel like I raised them or helped raise them, and they are my babies. They are my everything. My younger sister is 6 years younger than me, and my youngest sister is 9 years younger than me, and they are just everything in the world to me. Like, would take a bullet for them, no thoughts like necessary. And the fact that they are now like 18 and 15 is actually insane to me, because, you know, it has me thinking about the inevitability of death and changes in dynamics, and what do you mean that we're all getting older and there's nothing that we can do to stop it? And my dad just turned 50, and you know what I mean? Like, I've been doing a lot of like introspective thinking about like, what do I believe in? Is God real? And no matter what you believe, like, I don't care. Whatever brings you comfort in the humanness of existence, good on you. Don't make other people feel shitty for not believing what you believe in. Not me talking about dragon fantasy books and the inevitability of death and religion in the same podcast episode. But like, I struggle a lot. I grew up Christian, who hasn't in this country, and then as I grew up, I just drifted away from the idea. We can do a deeper dive on religion in a future episode if you guys want to. I have a minor in religion, and I did actually a really cool project in college, comparing cult recruitment tactics to the Star Wars franchise. We'll get into that another time. But the idea of never seeing the people I care about again absolutely scares the shit out of me, regardless of what I believe. And so, like, there's this religious trauma in the back of my head that's like, well, if you don't believe, then you for sure won't see them again, because on the slight chance that there is an afterlife and there's a heaven or another world beyond this one, Like, if you don't believe, like, you're screwed. Like, you know what I mean? So a part of me has always been so scared to fully, like, not believe in something. But I was talking with someone, I don't remember who, a few months back, and we were just talking about the concept of matter not being able to be created nor destroyed, right? I can't remember what law that is. I want to say it's not a thermodynamics law. I'm not a STEM major. I am an English major all the way through. But and that idea is so comforting to me, because the fact that our energy can never be destroyed means that it has to go somewhere, right? And whether that energy takes on the same form in this next life or when becoming something new, it's nice to know that our energy is never truly gone. You know what I mean? So, like, sure, we're getting older. My sister's going off to college, you know, not to get really, really down and out, but, like, you know, one of us is going to go first. But, like, that energy will never go away. And I think I have realized that my belief is that, I guess what I want to believe in, regardless of higher power, afterlife, whatever, is I believe that I will see the people that I love again. Whether or not it's in the same body capacity, I believe that I will be able to recognize the fact that I love these people beyond this world. You know what I mean? Is that too morbid for the first episode of this podcast? Anyway, I've just been thinking a lot about time, and you ever try to, like, okay, picture this. You're laying awake at night, it's like 2 a.m, and you're like, oh my gosh, you know what? Like, I'm really tired, but I can't seem to sleep. And then you try to wrap your brain around the concept of forever, and then it sends you into a panic attack. No, just me. Okay, great. The concept of forever, if I think about it too long, I will actually genuinely have to stop talking about it after this, because it will send me into a panic attack. The idea that I cannot conceptualize forever and eternity and nothing actually makes me want to vomit. Okay. So yeah, reading fantasy books about dragons and war colleges, and also the passage of time and what lies beyond the grave, you know? Gotta love it. Yeah. I don't know what else to talk about. Actually, I lied. What are the future of this podcast? Which I already kind of touched on, but I think I want to have 3 or 4 points per podcast that I want to talk about, unless I'm doing it with someone. And I want to have at least 2, not sillier, but like things that I'm into, books or video games or movies or shows, and then maybe 1 or 2 serious things, just to, I don't know, keep it real, I guess. I'm not sure. I'm rambling at this point. I mean, it isn't called Stream of Consciousness for nothing. But yeah, I think I'm going to make this episode a little bit shorter than 30 minutes. The goal is 30 minutes, eventually probably an hour. But this is the first episode of this podcast. Let me know what you think, what you guys want to hear me talk about. And I guess word vomit about Stream of Consciousness style. So thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked this podcast, be sure to check out my Twitch channel and my other videos on my YouTube channel, which I am getting terrible about posting my VODs for my Twitch channel on. And hopefully soon I will be able to have another episode of this out. And hopefully you guys will let me know what you want to hear about before I do that. So yeah, I hope to see you guys soon. Thank you so much for tuning in.